Good day, sir. Today I will report Paleozoic era, geologic time period. The Paleozoic period have Cambrian, Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian, Carboniferous, Permian. The Paleozoic means time of ancient life. Era lasted from 544 to 245 million years ago and is divided into six periods. These 300 million years of Paleozoic era realized many critical events in evolution, including development of most invertebrate group life, consists of plants, the evolution of fish, reptiles, insects, and vascular plants, the formation of the supercontinent of Pangaea. Fish and fish-like vertebrates arose in the early Paleozoic and comprise more than half of the diversity of vertebrates that inhabit the world today. Also importantly, there were also no less than two ice ages in the Paleozoic. The Paleozoic was ended with the greatest mass extinction event in geologic history, the Permian Triassic extinction, where some 95% of all marine species met extinction. The first period was Cambrian period, 544 to 505 MYA. Most major animal groups appear. Cambrian life. Prior to the Cambrian life was small and simple. In the Cambrian period, prodigious change occurred, all in the ocean as the land remained barren. Except for enigmatic forms, all mature animals filled with the fossil record, except bryozoa, are represented in the Cambrian. Because sunlight became mineralized, the possibility of fossil formation greatly increased. Some phyla not represented in the Cambrian fossil record are nonetheless believed to have first appeared during this first period of Paleozoic era. Many extinct phyla with no relationship to other animals also appear in the Cambrian. The ostensibly sudden appearance of very diverse faunas over a period of no more than a few tens of millions of years is called the Cambrian explosion. A unique aspect of Cambrian is prevalence of large staten fossil sites exhibiting exceptional preservation, including preservation of soft tissue parts. The large staten are paramount to science understanding of the evolutionary origins of complex early organisms that contain the genetic building blocks of life on Earth today. The next is the Devonian period, 410 to 360 MYA, the age of fishes, colonization of the land. Devonian life. The Devonian period brought significant diversification of terrestrial life, including the first vertebrate, the amphibians, and the first forests of trees appeared. This completed the land colonization process likely started in the late Cambrian, so did marine life increase in diversity and complexity. In fact, the Devonian is something called the age of fishes. The lobe-finned fishes, Sacropterygii, and ray-finned fish, Actinopterygii, appear among the Sarcopterygii, the first fish involved like to walk on the land as theropods some 365 years ago. Class more common, larger, and fiercer. The placoderm armored fishes enjoyed their greatest diversity in the Devonian. Only the two mysterious disappear at the end of the period. Among invertebrates, the ammonite mollusks appear, and crinoid, coral, and bronchiopod remain common and thriving. The first seed-bearing plant is spread across dry land, ultimately forming huge forests. Early Devonian plants lack roots and leaves and mostly lack vascular tissue and were tiny. They probably spread largely by vegetative growth and did not grow much more than a few centimeters tall. However, by the late Devonian primitive plants such as the lycopates, scenopates, fern, and progynous had formed widespread forests. The late Devonian extinction severely affected marine life, particularly bronchopite, trilobite, ammonites, conodonts, and acritarch, fish, and placoderms. The next period was Carboniferous period, 360 to 286 MYA, the age of plant, reptiles, and the ammonic egg appear. Carboniferous fossil. The Carboniferous period derived its name from the massive deposit of coal found in UK and Western Europe. In North America, the Carboniferous is divided into Mississippian period and the Pennsylvanian period. During the Carboniferous, the continent below the equator still formed the supercontinent Gondwana. The next period was Permian period, 286 to 245 MYA. The Permian period extends from about 286 to 245 million years ago and is the last geological period of the Paleozoic era. The Permian was named in the 1840s by Sir Roderick Murchison, a British geologist, from the extensive Permian exposures near Perm in Russia. The Permian extended with the most expensive extinction event recorded in paleontology. The Permian Triassic extinction event where some 90% to 95% of marine organisms and 70% of all terrestrial organisms became extinct. The next period was Ordovician period, 505 to 440 MYA, massive marine life, diversification. Ordovician life. Metazoan invertebrate dominated Ordovician life, while far less famous than the Cambrian explosion. The Ordovician encompassed a massive adaptive radiation where marine faunal general expressed some fold. Carbonate shell excreting organisms were particularly